Hi, everyone. I hope you had a nice holiday and a happy new year. Welcome back to Life of a Business Manager podcast. This is the podcast where we break down the real world skills every business manager needs to succeed. I'm your host, Sina Chan, and today's episode is a little different. It's going to be a short episode as we wrap up 2025. I wanted to take a moment to reflect on some of the podcast conversations we've had, the lessons we've learned, and the reality of life of a business manager. This episode is about reflecting, growing, and being grateful for what we have and where we're headed next on Life of a Business Manager podcast. Let's get to it. Okay, everyone, let's get started with segment one, which is why this podcast exists. To be honest with you, when I first started Life of a Business Manager podcast, the goal was simply just to share exactly what I do and why I do this type of work. I felt like the definition was missing and the title can be very broad and vague. And it was difficult to describe exactly the type of work that I did daily. The podcast was developed to create an honest space for discussions where business managers, especially those in healthcare, education, operations, and corporate environment, could feel safe to discuss. Because being a business manager isn't just about budgets and reports. Being a business manager is about making quick decisions with incomplete information that you're given, balancing leadership with accountability, supporting teams while managing expectations from the top. This podcast was built to break down the role, demystify the work, and remind you that you're not navigating this type of job alone. So it's for all the business managers out there and anyone listening interested in this role. That's the reason why the podcast exists. Alrighty, everyone. Now that we know why this podcast exists, let's move into segment two, which is highlighting some of the most memorable conversations from this year. We heard from voices across multiple different industries and at various stages of their lives. And each conversation reinforced an important truth. While the roles and the titles may look different, the challenges that people face are often very similar. Let's take a quick look at the top 5 episodes of the year. The first episode is What You Can Do Today as a Business Manager. The second episode is Why I Started the Podcast. The third episode is Boosting Productivity Practical Tips for Business Managers. The fourth episode is How to Resolve Your Daily Fire Drills. And then your fifth episode is Inside the Role of an Educational Specialist. I'm genuinely proud of this top 5 episode, and part of it is because 4 of the 5 are my solo episodes and the ones that I've actually written myself. We've had so many interesting conversations and incredible guests this year, and I want to sincerely thank everyone who took the time to join the podcast and share their experiences. That said, these episodes truly reflect the core mission of Life of a Business Manager and why we're here. We're here to educate listeners on what it really means to be a business manager and the work that happens behind the title. Okay, everyone, now that we know the top 5 episodes of this year, let's go over what 2025 has taught us in all of the episodes. The first lesson is the role of a business manager is evolving. You're no longer just managing operations, you're navigating change, technology, people, and uncertainty, often all at the same time. The second lesson is data matters, but people matter more. Metrics tell a part of the story, but your team's morale, your workload, the trust that you have within your team is important as well. The third lesson is burnout is real and preventing it is a leadership responsibility. The strongest managers aren't always the busiest ones. They're the leaders who know when to pause, to delegate, and reset before burnout actually sets in. And finally, the fourth lesson is allow yourself to grow into the role. No one starts out knowing everything in their role, and it takes time. There's always a learning curve, and building confidence happens through experiences, and that happens through working there for quite some time and learning all the mistakes that you've made and the lessons learned, even when it feels uncomfortable. So those are the big lessons from 2025. Alrighty, everyone, let's jump into segment 4, which is probably going to be my favorite segment out of this episode. And part of it is because we're going to talk about something we don't always get to talk about, which is the behind the scenes of this podcast. Now, I wanted to just be real with everyone for a moment. While creating this podcast, I have a full-time job as a business manager, and that hasn't been easy. It's hard to manage your time. It's hard to make time for anything. And this podcast takes actually a lot of work. I do everything myself for this podcast. And so I'm working on it every single day. There are some days where it's been just straight up rough. There are days where there's late nights writing scripts, there's early mornings recording, and then there are those moments where I ask myself, am I making any sense? Am I making an impact with all of these episodes? And this is where we could talk about the imposter syndrome for a second, because it is real. And that self doubt, the nerves right before you press record. And honestly, I still get the nerves before pressing the record button, even after almost doing this for a year. So it depends on how you manage those nerves. But for me, I still get them sometimes. And I even get them with guests on while recording. So wondering if you're good enough or if anyone's listening, I have felt that throughout the entire year. You're always thinking that for some reason. It's always in the back of your head. So just know that you're not alone and we all have that. But what pushes me through all of these episodes is when I see that they're getting downloaded, that actually people are listening from all over the world. And I really, really appreciate it. But those downloads really keep me going. And even if it's just 1, 5, 10, 30, however many downloads it is, they do keep me going for every single episode. This podcast is a reflection of real life and my life and the lives of the people on the show. It's busy, it's messy at times, but I hope it's meaningful to anyone that's listening. And before we wrap up, just a quick plug, keep an eye out for the next episode where I'm diving deeper into the details behind this podcast and how I got started. I think it's going to be a good one, and hopefully everyone can learn from that episode and start your own. Alrighty, everyone, let's wrap up this episode. Now that we know the behind the scenes of this podcast, let's talk about what is next for 2026. So looking ahead, Life of a Business Manager podcast is continuing to grow, and I'm super excited about bringing on even more interesting and diverse guests. Now, I'm always open to new episode ideas and conversations, so if there's a topic you want to hear about or a discussion you think would be valuable to this podcast, please don't hesitate to email me directly. And also, if you have an interesting story about your current career and how you were able to get where you are right now, please feel free to contact me as well. My email is in the show notes below. And for everyone listening, here's what you can expect moving into 2026. The first one is more how-to episodes that break down the day-to-day reality of being a business manager. The second is more career development conversations to help you grow, pivot, and move forward as a person. And the third is having more discussions around AI, operations, and leadership in today's workforce. And the fourth is behind the scenes stories of what it's really like to juggle multiple roles and responsibility. At the end of the day, the goal is simple: to keep this podcast honest, genuine, practical, relatable, and grounded in real world experiences from me and from every guest that's joined the show. So I wanted to close out 2025 and I wanted to just thank everyone for listening and supporting this podcast every week. Thank you for subscribing and sharing this podcast to either your family or your friends. And thank you to all the guests that showed up on this podcast. And I will not get cheesy on you, but I did want to say, if you want to start a podcast, you should do it. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to get it done and keep showing up for yourself. This is Life of a Business Manager podcast. I'm Sina, and I'll see you in 2026. Thank you, everyone. Bye.